Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about what your favorite fighter tells me about you, part 3. Alright, similar to the first two videos, I'm just going to be making some observations about certain fan bases within the MMA community. Now, keep in mind, at the end of the day, this is all for shits and giggles. Do not take anything I say too personally in this video. These are just observations that I made, while also cracking some jokes. Alright, so I'm going to list 10 fighters and have them up on your screen in a couple of seconds. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so we start off with the Khamzat Chimaev fans. Now, if you like watching Khamzat Chimaev fight, I completely get it. Alright, Khamzat Chimaev arguably has the most dominant grappling game in the sport of mixed martial arts right now, at least in the upper weight classes. And overall, Khamzat Chimaev is a very fun and entertaining fighter. But Khamzat Chimaev fans will vehemently defend Chimaev's last performance against DDP, and that's something I won't really understand. Alright? You could say that, Khamzat Chimaev put on a technical bout. He made it a point to go 25 minutes, and DDP should have been doing a better job getting back up to the feet. But did you honestly enjoy watching Chimaev hold DDP in crucifix for 20 plus minutes with barely any sort of effective damage or submission attempt?
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy.
I feel like if you criticize Chimaev, these fans will automatically attack you as some sort of Islamophobe. And that's simply not the case. It's just it was a terrible fight to watch in terms of entertainment. Alright? If I wanted to see someone getting crucifixed for 20 plus minutes, I would just roll in jiu-jitsu class against the blue or purple belts. And the other thing I noticed about Chimaev fans, right? Most of them, they're not like this, but there's a couple online, especially the more vocal ones, that mistakenly lump Chimaev in with the Dagestanis. And I don't know why. Chimaev, I feel, alright, even though they are from the same region of the world, if you call Chimaev a Dagestani, he will try to kill you. Just like how if you call a Korean person Japanese or a Pakistani person Indian. It's just like that. And if you're not a Chimaev fan or anything like that, I get it. But at the same time, though, the most avid and vocal Chimaev fans are also making that mistake. So I'm just very confused because I feel like Chimaev fans would make it a point that he's Chechnyan instead of Dagestani, instead of just lumping every single Caucasus region fighter together. Alright, that's something I noticed. Right? It's not a major criticism I have, but for the most part, I think Chimaev's a cool fighter, alright, and most of his fans are pretty chill. It's just the ones that vehemently defend Chimaev's last performance against DDP that sometimes drive me nuts, as well as the grifters like Kenny Okoye and IBG the Waffler. Moving on to the Joshua Van fans, if you are a hardcore Joshua Van fan right now, you know ball, alright? And you might very well be a short king, because Joshua Van is the representative of the short king community across the world. And right now, however, you are vehemently defending Joshua Van from the fraud champ allegations after what happened at UFC 323, where Joshua Van won the belt via flukish injury in the first round against Pantoja. Alright, I believe that Joshua Van can still be the champion. I'm not exactly 100% sure. You got guys like Tatsuro Taira and Manel Cap also waiting in line, including Pantoja. But overall, Joshua Van fans, we all believe in him. We all love our short king for a reason. We all know ball, right? We all know that Joshua Van is one of the most entertaining fighters on the roster right now. So overall, Joshua Van fans, I have nothing but respect for you guys. Moving on to the Deigo Lopes fans, very similar to the Joshua Van fans, you just appreciate fun fighters who are active as fuck, like Deigo Lopes. Alright, but there's one thing I've kind of noticed with the hardcore Deigo Lopes fans. You're dead convinced that Lopes beats Evloev in a rematch. Now, I do want to see that fight run back. Do I think that Lopes wins against Evloev? I'm not too sure, because I do think that Evloev, although he doesn't have the finishing potential, he is the perfect antithesis to Deigo Lopes' wild style. And third, you might be Mexican, because Deigo Lopes, although he's Brazilian, he's basically the #1 Mexican representative in the UFC right now. Overall, Deigo Lopes fans, we just love fun scraps. But, right, I do feel like Deigo Lopes is a little bit overestimated by a lot of the hardcore Deigo Lopes fans, in my opinion. But I might be wrong. I'm not saying that Lopes loses to Evloev or Volkanovski in the rematch again. But I do feel that Lopes sometimes is overrated by his hardcore fans a little bit too much. Speaking of which, though, we got the Movsar Evloev fans. Now, if you tell me that Movsar Evloev is one of your top 5 favorite fighters on the roster right now, you're probably defending against Diddy allegations on the regular basis. Not only that, though, you're trying to be a hipster, right? Because forget even top 5. If you tell me at featherweight that your favorite fighter on the roster is Movsar Evloev, I don't believe you. All right, name me a time where Movsar Evloev has looked exceptionally entertaining and fun to watch. All right, he's technical, yes, and he can hang with the best in the world, yes, and he should be deserving of the next title shot, yes. But to advocate Movsar Evloev as the most entertaining fighter at featherweight, yeah, you're a little bit too delusional. And the only reasons I can think of as to why you would glaze Movsar Evloev is because you watch MMA Joey and Kenny Okoye do the same thing. Alright, and let me just say this. Those guys just glaze fighters just because they're unpopular. Alright, I don't think that's a controversial take by any means. That's what they do. And I feel like you guys are just trying to be hipsters, or like, oh, you doubted Movsar Evloev? You find Movsar Evloev boring? Like, you're casual, bro. These are the types of people that say this, when in reality, most of them probably don't enjoy Movsar Evloev like they say they do online or in public. Now, if you tell me to my face that Jean Silva is one of your favorite fighters on the roster, all I have to say to you is, you're a good Goyim. Alright, you're a proud Christian Zionist. Here's your $7,000 into your bank account. Now kiss the wall. Now, all jokes aside, I do get why Jean Silva might be your favorite fighter, but over the last couple of months, let's just say he has been very unlikable, to say the least. He's just here for aura farming, which I can respect, but that's all I care about for him at this point, because he has just become so unlikable, hitting Deigo Lopes behind the head after their fight, and just overall being very obnoxious. And that's where Jean Silva's personality comes in as well. You might have autism if you like Jean Silva, because you can resonate with Jean Silva's volatile mood swings and his constant barking. So overall, though, I understand why you would like Jean Silva, but to call him your top 3 favorite fighter of all time, it's kind of tough to sell that in 2026 because of what happened over the last couple of months. Alright, now up next, we got the Kamaru Usman fans. If you tell me that you're a Kamaru Usman fan in the year of 2026, I am going to automatically assume that you're a Kenny Okoye fan by proxy, because Kenny Okoye is the #1 Kamaru Usman glazer on YouTube right now, And only Kenny Okoye and his devout followers will disregard his back acne and him faking nut shots constantly throughout most of his fights. And right now, you are basically spreading mass propaganda for Kamaru Usman to get the next title shot against Islam Makhachev. And let me just say this for all of the people who actually want to see good fights. We do not care to see Kamaru Usman at the age of 38 coming off a one-fight win streak against Joaquin Buckley skip the line over guys like Ian Machado Gary and Michael Morales. So overall, Kamaru Usman, your fans are incredibly annoying to say the least. It doesn't help that Kenny Okoye is basically your mascot. And overall, I'm going to automatically assume that you're insufferable if you tell me that you're a Kamaru Usman fan. Now, moving on to Leon Edwards fans. If you tell me that you're a Leon Edwards fan, you're probably the guy who just watched way too many Headshot Dead edits on TikTok. Or you're just reminiscing the good old days back in 2022. Right? Because I feel like most Leon Edwards fans are just glamored by all the pretty techniques and feints. And fair enough, that's how I initially enjoyed Leon Edwards. But as you start to watch more and more Leon Edwards fights, you realize the guy doesn't do much. He really doesn't. Like, he'll try to be aggressive, but at the same time, he'll end 3 rounds with 20 leg kicks and a couple of feints. That's typically how a Leon Edwards fight goes. Every time you think that he's going to show out and just put on a masterclass on his opponents, like, he tries to barely do enough in order to win. And eventually, that's what ultimately deterred me from becoming a hardcore Leon Edwards fan. But fair enough, there are still some hardcore Leon Edwards fans out there, despite Leon Edwards going on a 3-fight win streak. So all I have to say to you guys is, stay strong. I don't know if Leon Edwards is going to retire anytime soon. He's coming off 3 losses in a row, and basically a title shot for him at this point is impossible. But hopefully Leon Edwards bounces back with a couple of wins. Maybe he gets a win over a next unranked prospect, and then he can retire safely. But either way, I don't want to dunk on you guys too hard because of how Leon Edwards has been performing over the last couple of years. Moving on, we got Khalil Rountree fans. If you tell me that you're a Khalil Rountree fan, you either watch Warhorse MMA or you watched a bunch of TikTok edits of Joe Rogan describing Khalil Rountree's legs like they're made of mahogany. Right? That's typically how most Khalil Rountree fans come to know about Khalil Rountree. Or you're just a hardcore Muay Thai fan. Right? Because that's all Khalil Rountree does. He only trains Muay Thai despite being in the UFC. Where you can grapple in this sport, by the way, Khalil Rountree. Like, the guy actively chooses to only strike. Which, fair enough, that could lead to some entertaining bouts. But I do feel like most Khalil Rountree fans are just so fixated on the highlights that when you watch Khalil Rountree fights as a whole, it kind of blurs your vision of how Khalil Rountree actually fights. Because there are times where I watch Khalil Rountree fight and be like, nothing much really happened. Like the Jamal Hill fight, for example. Like, it wasn't boring, but I wouldn't call it a blockbuster like how Joe Rogan would say, like, oh, his legs are made of mahogany, and Jamal Hill's got to be careful of those leg kicks, man. They are devastating. All right, I won't go that far with Khalil Rountree Grace, but fair enough, he does put on some fun fights from time to time. His finishes are pretty gruesome, to say the least. So I do understand why there are some Khalil Rountree fans, but I do feel like there's excessive glaze to the point where you're overshadowing what Khalil Rountree actually is. Moving on to the Cory Sandhagen fans. If you tell me that you're a Cory Sandhagen fan in 2026, you're probably white. And not only that, you're the type of person to make the white people win jokes on Instagram. And let's just face it, if you tell me Sandhagen's your favorite fighter, you're a nerd, right? There's a reason why many of us call him Nerdhagen, or as Lucas Tracy would call him, the beakers and test tubes guy. You know, the guy rarely puts on aggressive performances. Fair enough, the Merab Dvalishvili fight was very entertaining, but outside of that, like, Cory Sandhagen has a very hard time trying to be aggressive and all that. We've seen that in the Umar Nurmagomedov fight, as well as the Marlon Chito Vera fight. But still, though, Cory Sandhagen, he's good, he's fun, he's chill. His fans are chill for the most part, but I just happen to notice that they're all white. They all make the same jokes about white people win, and quite frankly, most of you are nerds. Last but not least, though, we got the Nassourdine Imavov fans. If you tell me that Nassourdine Imavov is your favorite fighter on the roster right now, I gotta say this. You guys were right about Imavov, right? I doubted Nassourdine Imavov for the longest time. And I do feel like Nassourdine Imavov's not really a popular fighter still, but he became the #1 contender, even though I never thought he was ever going to reach the top 5 of the middleweight division. You know, he had terrible performances with Roman Dolidze. He lost to Sean Strickland on short notice. He had a stinky performance with Brendan Allen. Like, all of those red flags to me were like, oh, he's not going to reach the top of the division at middleweight at least. But you guys stuck with Imavov, and now he's the #1 contender at middleweight, and he's going to fight Khamzat Chimaev next. So hats off to you guys for being loyal to him and sticking through him, even though there were a lot of doubters like myself over the course of like 3 to 4 years. And I do admit that Imavov, when he's on, he is very fun to watch because of his slick movement and his hands. Like, the guy is arguably the best boxer in the upper weight classes, and his footwork is a thing of beauty. However, Nassourdine Imavov fans do like to see Imavov eye poke his opponents. You know, it's only the Imavov fans that vehemently defend Imavov whenever he commits a foul, right? Oh, it's not Imavov's fault that his opponents keep running into his fingers, you know? And Imavov's just doing his job trying to find range. That's most Nassourdine Imavov fans online. And quite frankly, I gotta say, that's excessive glaze. Because Nassourdine Imavov, whether you like to admit it or not, does like to use underhanded tactics. And this is not even me hating on Nassourdine Imavov, which a lot of people think I do. Like, overall, I think Nassourdine Imavov is cool. Like, he knocked out Israel Adesanya, and I will forever be thankful for that because we got that generational cope session from Kenny Okoye. But he does like to use underhanded tactics, and that is something I need to point out. So as long as you guys can admit that Nassourdine Imavov might be a little bit of a dirty fighter, to say the least, I'm cool with you guys. And I understand why Imavov is one of your favorite fighters on the roster because he's very slick to watch when he's in the zone. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. Otherwise, leave any video suggestions you have for me in the comments down below so I can possibly make them in the future. But outside of that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.